Paddy
I'm gonna react to how Paddy Pimblett lost his fans in a week.
Pimblett went from one of the most likable fighters in the UFC to one of its most hated in about a week. So what happened? Before this video starts, I wanted to say Paddy is a pretty good guy. He released a video about mental health awareness for men, which is a topic that should be discussed more often. So I kind of feel like a piece of shit for dropping this video like a couple days after that video, but I kind of worked hard on this video and I put a lot of hours into it, so I'm gonna drop it anyways. So yeah, Paddy has recently become the UFC's most hated fighter in record-breaking time. See, when once beloved fighters become very hated by the UFC fan base, it usually takes a lot of bad decisions and a series of unfortunate events for their image to be tarnished. But in Paddy's case, it practically only took 7 days for the entire UFC fan base to turn on him. It seems like the whole UFC community has united against him.
Man, these UFC fighters, bro, like these fighters be bugging, they be bugging the fuck out, bro. Like they be fighting each other on the fucking standoff shit. Like they be doing like punches, like doing all wild shit, bro.
Paddy Pimblett, and I wanted to showcase how we got here. But before I begin, I wanted to mention that there are a lot of great video essays already out there on YouTube documenting the problem with Paddy Pimblett, his delusion, the controversial fight he had with Jared Gordon, and also the Ariel Helwani situation, all of which we'll get to later in this video. But I wanted to compile all of these things into one video and kind of demonstrate a timeline of when he was very liked all the way to the point we're at now where he's very hated. So let's begin. Let's go all the way back to last year, 2021, when he exploded on the scene with his debut against Luigi Vendramini in the Apex. If you haven't already watched this fight, I suggest you check it out. It's an absolute banger. The full fight is on the UFC channel, and it's just one round of pure action. The fight actually starts with Vendramini getting the best of Paddy Pimblett when he lands a huge left hook over the top that rocks Paddy, and then he also goes for a successful take.
That punch looked like it made Paddy stumble a bit, bro. I ain't gonna lie, bro. Paddy look like he stumbled.
However, Paddy does get up and they start to trade back and forth for the next couple of minutes up until the point where Paddy kind of finds his range and starts barraging Vendramini with punches and finishes him with the TKO. Not only was this an awesome finish, but the post-fight interview was just as entertaining. He blessed us with his beautiful Scouse accent and a bunch of amazing quotables. And I remember the internet at the time could not get over how ridiculous he looked. I mean, his hair is beautiful. That bowl cut is awesome, and he looks like the 5th member of the Beatles. Now before this, he was a pretty big star in Cage Warriors, which is a fighting organization that a lot of European stars have come out of, such as Conor McGregor and Michael Bisping. But this debut definitely blew up his name, particularly to North America. And the Paddy the Baddy love would only grow from here, as he would have 2 electrifying submissions, both rear naked chokes in the O2 Arena at London, England during UFC fight nights. And it was kind of hard not to like the guy. I mean, every one of his fights was a banger, whether he was getting hit or he was hitting his opponent. All of his fights ended up in him getting that finish. He had great charisma, he was really good on the mic, and he also had a very powerful and heartfelt message about mental health and mental health awareness in his post-fight interview after his finish on Jordan Levitt. Additionally, he had great social media presence, and his YouTube channel.
Oh, he even have a YouTube channel that I think it's almost at near 1 million, some shit.
Is pretty exciting even after all of this drama. He showcased his training as a fighter. He is also very known for ballooning in weight when he's not fighting. I documented this in one of my videos, but he ate like a madman when he was out of camp, and people seem to enjoy his life outside of fighting as well. So how did this rising star that was pretty much loved by his community come to the point where we're talking about him being really hated? Well, it all started when he dropped his podcast with Dana White. In this podcast with Dana White, he would preview UFC 282, which was the event that he was co-manning for, and they would talk about the event, the UFC in general, and for some reason it got to the topic of journalism, and then this is where the tone of the podcast switched. In this segment, Paddy brings up Ariel Helwani, who is an MMA journalist, and he just absolutely shits on him, calling him a rodent, a rat, and personally attacked.
Damn, he violated, bro. You that violated him. He faster, nigga. Oh.
Him. He says or claims that Ariel Helwani has been taking advantage of fighters by making money off of their name in the interviews that he does with them, and he's basically in the wrong for not paying the fighters he's interviewing. And it's kind of ironic that he's saying all of this and talking about the exploitation of fighters in front of Dana, of all people. If you want to check out this video by me, I go in depth about how Dana has kind of taken advantage of fighters and taken opportunities away from fighters to make more money. But the whole situation was just really ironic. And well, the MMA community did not take a liking to what Paddy said. And for those who don't know, Ariel Helwani is one of the more respected MMA journalists. He's been in the game since the beginning. And besides probably Joe Rogan, he's been one of the most recognizable and OG parts of the sport. This isn't a perfect analogy, but Ariel Helwani is to the UFC as Stephen A. Smith is to basketball. He gets memed on, but I think generally both communities respect those guys a lot because of the dedication to covering the sport. But then Ariel would clap back with a response of his own in an hour-long segment on his show where he basically exposed Paddy and all of the things he said in the podcast with Dana White. The biggest moment and key takeaway from this segment is when Ariel Helwani would expose Paddy Pimblett with a voice message that was sent to him, basically insinuating that Paddy would come onto the show with Ariel. Ariel would agree, and then Paddy would set Ariel up with his manager, but things would get a little weird when Paddy's manager would ask Ariel for some type of payment, because I guess Paddy was too busy to be on that show unless he got paid. And here, this is where Ariel Helwani would make a really good point. He basically says that this is typically not how journalism works. With these big name athlete interviews, there's mutual benefit for both parties. Basically, the guy conducting the interview is able to have a big name or a rising star on their show, which brings in more viewers. The person who is being interviewed gets more exposure and allows fans to see another side of them, a more personal side to them. So with both sides mutually benefiting from one another, traditionally there is no form of payment between the two parties. Ariel also explains that he has had much bigger stars than Paddy on the show, such as Jon Jones and Conor McGregor. So for Paddy to be the first person out of all of the people he's interviewed to ask for a form of payment to be on the show, it just felt like Paddy felt entitled or he wanted some type of star treatment. So going into UFC 280.
Oh, Paddy thought he was a big UFC star or some shit. He thought he was a mega star. Something like that. He thought he was a mega star or some shit. Thought it was Conor McGregor or fucking whoever, Brock Lesnar, whatever.
He definitely lost some fans and some likability with his handling of the Ariel Helwani situation, but he could erase all of that with his fight against Jared Gordon, somebody who everybody expected Paddy to beat. But unfortunately for Paddy, this is where things went south. I remember watching this live with my bro, and Paddy was dominated by Jared Gordon from start to finish. Gordon kept landing those same damaging shots. It was usually the left hook, but also sometimes the right hook, and it seemed like Paddy was getting clipped by everything Gordon was throwing. At the end of the fight, I had it 3-0 for Jared Gordon. I thought it was a pretty clear, dominating performance by Jared. He landed the much more damaging shots. You could maybe give round 2 to Paddy because the punch stats were much more close, but Jared Gordon definitely had the first round and definitely had the third round with a lot of ground control time. So when the decision was announced, and mind you, a unanimous decision for Paddy Pimblett, everybody was in shock. Unfortunately, Jared Gordon was clearly robbed in favor of a rising star, and what made matters even worse is that Paddy Pimblett asked Dana White for fight of the night. And the thing is, this fight was not only a robbery, but it was by far the worst fight on the main card. Now we come to the final nail in the coffin, which is doubling down. So after this fight, Paddy goes backstage, and in a video that he posted on YouTube, he would double down and say he did win that fight. And not only this, he would call out all of his critics as haters. He was so adamant that he clearly won the fight, and he never once admitted how close that fight was. He truly thought that that fight, in which he was dominated from start to finish, was a win for him. And I love the comments in this comment section because even Paddy fans wanted to let Paddy know that he lost that fight clearly. Everybody, whether they were Paddy fans or not, were united under the fact that he was delusional and that he did not win that fight. So this is where we're at now. A once beloved star with great potential turned into one of the most criticized and hated fighters in a record-breaking time. So the following is just my opinion and my thoughts. Take it with a grain of salt. But what I think is that stardom went to his head and he became a megastar way too quickly. He became a huge star in the UFC in like less than a year, and he looked like the new face of the sport. I think this is what led him to feel entitled to demand.
Yo, that shit went to his head, man. Like, seemed like all that shit went to his head, bro. Bro, son, he started feeling himself. He started feeling himself.
Payment by Ariel Hawani, and this is also why he denies losing to a guy like Jared Gordon, who's outside of the top 15. And I think this is what led him to double down on the fact that he thinks he won against Jared Gordon and refuses to believe that the criticisms that are in his comment section is not hate. So what do you guys think about Paddy Pimblett? I think, it's pretty early in his career. He can turn this around and maybe admit that the Jared Gordon fight was pretty close. Maybe admit that he shouldn't be demanding payment from Ariel Hawani. Who knows? I think he's a really good guy. I want to mention that again. I think he's a really good guy. But, the last couple of things he's done haven't looked too great for him. So leave your comments in the comment section below.
Okay, that's the vid. So yeah, bro, what's your thoughts on Paddy Pimblett? Cause this is my first time hearing him, bro. Like literally, this is literally my first time me hearing about this dude, Pat Pimblett. Yeah, bro. Like this is my first time hearing him. So yeah, if is this your first time, let me know down below. So down in the comments, bro. So yeah, make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe. Y'all little vibes. Whoever you're checking out, you are.